Hello, welcome to day of reading through the Bible. I'm Toni Henderson-Mayers. I'll be your reader. I'm known as an actor, a director, producer, professor, but most important, I'm a child of God. And I'm also known as an entrepreneur too, as well. If you want to know more about me, join my Toni Henderson-Mayers YouTube channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe and ring the notification bell for that channel and this one so you'll know every time I upload a new video. So, you ready to read God's word? Let's go. Okay, Second Samuel 19 through 21. We gonna read in a minute, but I just want to say, get your popcorn, get your juice, honey, your tea, because it's action packed again. Okay, it ain't over. It ain't over. All right, chapter 19 of Second Samuel. Here we go. Joab was told, "The king is weeping and mourning for Absalom and for the whole army." The victory that day was turned into mourning because on that day, the troops heard it said, "The king is grieving for his son." Y'all pray for my eyes. They're trying to be blurry. Uh, the men stole The men stole into the city that day, as men steal in who are ashamed when they flee from battle. The king covered his face and cried aloud, "O my son Absalom, O Absalom, my son, my son." Then Joab went into the house to the king and said, "Today we have humiliated all your men, who have just saved your life and the lives of your sons and daughters and the lives of your wives and concubines. You love those, you love those who hate you and hate those who love you." Wow. "You have made it clear today that the commanders and their men mean nothing to you. I see that you I see that you would be pleased if Absalom were alive today and all of us were dead. Now go out and encourage your men." This is a friend right here, isn't it? I swear by the Lord that if you don't go out, not a man will be left with you by nightfall. This will be worse for you than all the calamities that have come on you from your youth till now. So the king got up and took his seat in the gateway. When the men were told the king is sitting in the gateway, they all came before him. Meanwhile, the Israelites had fled to their homes. David returns to Jerusalem. Throughout the tribes of Israel, all the people were arguing among themselves, saying, "The king delivered us from the hand of our enemies. He is the one who rescued us from the hands of the Philistines. But now he has fled the country to escape from Absalom, and Absalom, whom he anointed to rule over us, has died in battle. So why do you say nothing about bringing the king back?" King David sent his message to Zadok and Abiathar, the priests. "Ask the elders of Judah, why should you be the last to bring the king back to his palace? Since that what is being said about since what is being said throughout Israel has reached the king at his quarters. You are my relatives, my own flesh and blood. So why should you be the last to bring back the king? And say to Amasa, are you not my own flesh and blood? May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if you are not the commander of my army for life in place of Joab." He won over the hearts of the men of Judah so that they were all of one mind. They sent word to the king, "Return, you and all your men." Then the king returned and went as far as the Jordan. Now the men of Judah had come to Gilgal to go out and meet the king and bring him across the Jordan. Shimei, king of Gerar, the Benjamite from Bahuriim, hurried down with the men of Judah to meet King David. With him were 1,000 Benjamites, along with Ziba, the steward of Saul's household, and his 15 sons and 20 servants. They rushed to the Jordan where the king was. They crossed at the ford to take the king's household over and to do whatever he wished. When Shimei, son of Gera, crossed the Jordan, he fell prostrate before the king and said to him, "May my lord not hold me guilty. Do not remember how your servant did wrong on the day my lord the king left Jerusalem. May the king put it out of his mind. For I, your servant, know that I have sinned. But today I have come as the first from the tribes of Joseph to come down and meet my lord the king." Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, "Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for this? He cursed the Lord's anointed." David replied, "What does this have to do with you, the sons of Zeruiah? What right do you have to interfere? Should anyone be put to death in Israel today? Don't I know that today I am king over Israel?" So the king said to Shimei, "You shall not die." And the king promised him on an oath. Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson, also went down to meet the king. He did not take care of his feet or trim his mustache or wash his clothes from the day the king left until the day he returned safely. When he came from Jerusalem to meet the king asked him, "Why didn't you go with me, Mephibosheth?" He said, "My lord the king, since I, your servant, am lame, I said I will have my donkey saddled with and ride on it so I can go with the king. But Ziba, my servant, betrayed me, and he has slandered your servant in my and he has slandered your servant to my lord the king. My lord the king is like an angel of God, so whatever you wish. All my grandfather's descendants deserve nothing but death from my lord the king, but you gave your servant a place among those who eat at your table. So what right do I have to make any more appeals to the king?" The king said to him, "Why say more? I ordered you and Ziba to divide the land." Mephibosheth said to the king, "Let him take everything, now that my lord the king has returned home safely." Barzillai the Gileadite also came down from the Rogelim to cross the Jordan with the king and to send him on his way from there. Now Barzillai was very old, 80 years of age. He had provided for the king during this his stay Mahanaim, for he was a very wealthy man. Sorry, I'm dealing with these eyes, y'all. The king said to Barzillai, "Cross over with me and stay with me in Jerusalem, and I will provide for you." But Barzillai answered the king, "How many more years will I live that I should go up to Jerusalem with the king? I am now 80 years old. Can I tell the difference between what is enjoyable and what is not? Can your servant taste what he eats and drinks? Oh my, can I still hear the voices of male and female singers? Why should your servant be an added burden to my lord the king? Your servant will cross over the Jordan with the king for a short distance. But why should the king reward me in this way? Let your servant return, that I may die in my own town, near the tomb of my father and my mother. But here is your servant Kimham. Let him cross over with my lord the king. Do for him whatever you wish." The king said, "Kimham shall cross over with me, and I will do for him whatever you wish, and anything you desire from me, I will do for you." So all the people crossed the Jordan, and then the king crossed over. The king kissed and Barzillai, and bid him farewell. And Barzillai returned to his home. When the king crossed over to Gilgal, Kimham crossed with him. All the troops of Judah and the half troops of Israel had taken the king over. Soon all the men of Israel were coming to the king and saying to him, "Why did our brothers, the men of Judah, steal the king away and bring him and his household across the Jordan together with all his men?" All the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, "We did this because the king is closely related to us. Why are you angry about it? Had we eaten any of the king's provisions? Had we taken anything for ourselves?" Then the men of Israel answered the men of Judah, "We have 10 shares in the king, so we have greater claim on David than you have. Why then do you treat us with contempt? Weren't we the first to speak of bringing back our king?" But the men of Judah pressed their claims even more forcibly than the men of Israel. Chapter 20. Sheba rebels against David. Now a troublemaker named Sheba, son of Bichri, a Benjamite, happened to be there. He sounded the trumpet and shouted, "We have no share in David, no part in Jesse's son, every man to his tent, Israel." So all the men of Israel deserted David to follow Sheba, son of Bichri. But the men of Judah stayed by their king all the way from the Jordan to Jerusalem. When David returned to his palace in Jerusalem, he took the 10 concubines he had left to take care of the palace and put them in a house under guard. He provided for them, but had no sexual relations with them. They were kept in confinement till the day of their death, living as widows. When the king said to Amasa, "Summon the men of Judah to come to me within 3 days, and be here yourself." But when Amasa went to summon Judah, he took longer than the time the king had set for him. David said to Abishai, "Now Sheba, son of Bichri, will do will do us more harm than Absalom did. Take your master's men and pursue him, or he will find fortified cities and escape from us." So Joab's men and the Ketherites and Pelethites and all the mighty warriors went out under the command of Abishai. They marched out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, son of Bichri. Okay, while they were at the great rock in Gibeon, Amasa came to meet them. Joab was wearing his military tunic, and strapped over it as his waist was a belt with a dagger in a sheath. As he stepped forward, it dropped out of his sheath. Joab said to Amasa, "How are you, my brother?" Then Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. Amasa was not on his guard against the dagger in Joab's hand, and Joab plunged it into his belly, and his intestines spilled out on the ground. Mm. Without being stabbed again, Amasa died. Then Joab said, and then Joab and his brother Abishai pursued Sheba, son of Bichri. One of Joab's men stood beside Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the middle of the road, and the man saw that all the troops came to a halt there. When he realized that everyone who came to Amasa stopped, he dragged him from the road into a field and threw a garment over him. After Amasa had been removed from the road, everyone went on with Joab to pursue Sheba, son of Bichri. Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel Beth Maachah and through the entire region of the Bichrites, who gathered together and followed him. All the troops and Joab came and besieged Sheba and Abel Beth Maachah. They built a siege ramp up to the city, and it stood against the outer fortifications. While they were battering the wall to bring it down, a wise woman called from the city, "Listen, listen, tell Joab to come here so I can speak to him." He went toward her, and she asked, "Are you Joab?" I am, he answered. She said, listen to what your servant has to say. I am listening, he said. She continued, long ago, they used to say, get your answer at Abel, and that settled it. We are the peaceful and faithful in Israel. You are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why do you want to swallow up the Lord's inheritance? Far be it from me, Joab replied. Far be it from me to swallow up or destroy. That is not the case. A man named Sheba, son of Bichri, from the hill country of Ephraim, has lifted up his hand against the king, against David. Hand over this man, and I will withdraw from the city. The woman said to Joab, his head will be thrown to you from the wall. Then the woman went to all the people with her wise advice, and they cut off the head of Sheba, son of Bichri, and threw it to Joab. So he sounded the trumpet, and his men dispersed from the city, each returning to his home, and Joab went back to the king in Jerusalem. David's officials. Joab was over Israel's entire army. Benaiah, son of Jehoiah, was over the Ketherites and the Peletherites. Adoranium was in charge of forced labor. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was recorder. Sheba was secretary. Zadok and Abiathar were priests. And Ira the Jarite was David's priest. Chapter 21, our last chapter reading for today. The Gibeonites avenged. During the reign of David, there was a famine for 3 successive years, so David sought the face of the Lord. The Lord said, it is on account of Saul and his bloodstained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death. The king summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now, the Gibeonites were not a part of Israel, but were survivors of the Amorites, the Israelites, and sworn to spare them. But Saul, in his zeal for Israel and Judah, had tried to annihilate them. David asked the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you? How shall I make atonement so that you will bless the Lord's inheritance? The Gibeonites answered him, we have no right to demand silver or gold from Saul or his family, nor do we have the right to the right to put anyone in Israel to death. What do you want me to do for you? David asked. They answered the king, as for the man who destroyed us and plotted against us, so that we have been decimated and have no place anywhere in Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be given to us to be killed, and their bodies exposed before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the Lord's chosen one. So David said, I will give them to you. The king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons of Aiah's daughter, Rizpah, whom she bore to Saul, together with the 5 sons of Saul's daughter, Meribah, whom she bore to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Metholite. He handed them over to the Gibeonites, who killed them and exposed their bodies on a hill before the Lord. All 7 of them fell together. They were put to death during the first day of the harvest, just as the barley harvest was beginning. Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock. From the beginning of the harvest till the rain poured down from the heavens on the bodies, she did not let the birds touch them by day or the wild animals by night. When David was told what Aiah's daughter Rizpah, Saul's concubine, had done, he went and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the citizens of Jabesh Gilead. They had stolen their bodies from the public square of Beth Shan, where the Philistines had hung them after they struck Saul down at Gilboa. Gilboa. David brought the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from there, and the bones of those who had been killed and exposed were gathered up. They buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in the tomb of Saul's father Kish at Zelah in Benjamin, and did everything the king commanded. After that, God answered prayer in behalf of the land. War against the Philistines. Once again, there was a battle. Once again, there was a battle between the Philistines and Israel. David went down with his men to go fight against the Philistines, and he became exhausted. And Ishbi Benob, one of the descendants of Rapha, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels and who was armed with a new sword, said he would kill David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue. He struck the Philistine down and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, saying, "Never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished." In the course of time, there was another battle with the Philistines at Gob. At that time, Sibbecai, the Hushathite, killed Saph, one of the descendants of Rapha. In another battle with the Philistines of Gob, Elhanan, son of Jair, the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, who had a spear with a shaft like a weaver's rod. In still another battle, which took place at Gath, there was a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He was also a descendant from Rapha. When he taunted Israel, Jonathan, son of Shemaiah, David's brother, killed him. These 4 were descendants of Rapha in Gath, and they fell at the hands of David and his men. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. Wow, it is action-packed with so many things that were happening here. What about them trying to get into that city and speaking to the wise woman, and she didn't want that city to get torn down. She's like, "We the mother of Israel, this city. What's up?" When she found out what they wanted, what's his name? I think it was Sheba. They wanted him. She said, "That's all right, we'll get his head and we'll throw it right over the gate." My gosh. I said, these women ain't playing. And what about the whole situation with the concubines, being that they were David's concubines, and then they ended up being his son slept with them, remember, out in the open. So he had to put them, aside with guards, and they were taken care of, but they had to live the rest of their lives as widows. He couldn't touch them again after they had been with with another man. No fault of their own either. No fault of their own. But he slept not just with another man, but with his son. His son. Okay, and if you go back to the laws, remember in Genesis, this stuff could not happen. Remember that? And you have to go back and read that again if you forgot, or if you're just starting with us. Start at day 1 and go all the way through with this chronological read through the Bible. And Joab is such a faithful servant to David. He is an army man for sure, honey. He don't have no problem pulling out that sword. He has no problem. And I'm telling you, these scenes with him dropping his sword coming out of his sheath, and he like, "How you doing?" and all this kind of stuff that's going on would make great movie. It would make such a wonderful movie. It's just unbelievable. But these things happen, and they will still make some great viewing pleasure for sure. Um, The what about the fight of the 2 groups that wanted to bring the king in? Man, this stuff, I mean, this kind of stuff is the things that we see in our life already. Where people go fight, we got more right, we got more stake in the king. We should be the one bringing him in, and all that kind of thing. And Mesaboeth, he said he's going to be faithful to the end. Remember, Mesaboeth is Jonathan's son, and Jonathan was David's best friend. They were like brothers. They loved each other. So he took care of his son, his lame son, who was dropped, remember, at birth by his nurse. And Mesaboa was like, "Do whatever you want, honey. You took care of me. I'm not asking for another thing. I'm gonna be right there by your side. I'm grateful for what you have done." And what about this famine that comes along, and the famine, this is something that struck me, that the famine that was coming on the land for 3 years was because how something that Saul did to people, the Gibeonites, and the Lord just will cause a famine. Everybody's suffering because of, because their leader, their past leader, a judgment he made. And see, this is why it's so important who our leaders are. It's really, really important. What kind of decisions are they going to make? And you can get up there and be a leader and wrongs a group of people if you want to. You may find yourself in a famine, honey. This goes to show that sometimes things that are happening is because of some sort of sin that was either committed by a leader or individual, of course, in your individual lives or what have you. And so that was very interesting. Tell me in the comments section something that struck out to you, because there was so much in here that I don't always get a chance to talk about everything that happened, but I just wanted to bring up certain things. And of course, the wars against the Philistines, that was mentioned again, I believe, in Chronicles. And there is that guy with the six fingers and the six toes, and six, 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 six times four is 24. He had 24 in all. I know he was a sight to behold, right? My goodness. What else I want to bring out in here? Because there was so much in here to tell you the truth. Tell you the truth. And what a friend. We start off with David weeping and crying for his son Absalom, rightfully so. If you missed that, that's 2 days, not yesterday, but the day before, when we read what happened to Absalom, his son. And he's mourning for him. And but his friend Joab, who's also the commander of his army, and he's by his side, he's like, "You doing all this weeping and crying, and you ought to be celebrating and all, you're talking to your men and telling them, you glad about what they did and all. Because you doing all this, you gonna mess up your kingdom. You ain't gonna have no army. You ain't gonna have nothing." This is amazing that he is brave enough to speak truth to power to the king. And it's amazing how King David, when he knows something is right, he gonna go ahead and do it. He said, "Okay, this is right. You right. I'm grieving as a dad, but I gotta think about my as a leader." And that's difficult. That's really difficult to do, to separate the two and make a decision. Because I mean, if Absalom was right, then of course he need to make a decision what's right. Because sometimes our children are right, but because we have leadership, we don't want to, we don't want to do for our kids. I don't want it to be seen. I'm showing favoritism. Well, they right. So in that instance, you can go with it. But in this instance, his son was wrong. And he was grieving like a dad, which we're not saying you shouldn't grieve, but he needed to do that, a little on the private tip, and go ahead and talk to his soldiers and say, "Hey, you did a great job. I'm grateful, etc., etc." So Joab was really a brave to be honest with him and to tell him what is right. And boy, when you got somebody faithful by your side and somebody who's not afraid to tell you what is right, whether you want to hear it or not, that's a blessing. Listen, for homework, if you got somebody in your life that's going to tell you what's right, come hell or come high water, who don't mind, they love you and they don't mind telling you when you're wrong. Why don't you give them a call today and say, "I thank God for you"? Why don't you write them a letter or send them a text and say, "You know what? I appreciate the fact that I can count on you to tell me what is right, even when I don't want to hear it." Well, I gotta go. But you can visit me on the web, which is www.tonihendersonmayers.com. Make sure you spell it Toni. Make sure you spell Mayers, Mayers. And I'm hurrying because I'm hungry, because I've been to church, and this is my third recording, and I'm done. Just know that the word of God is a lamp unto our feet. It is a light unto our path. We will hide God's word in our hearts that we may not sin against God. And I'm about to take these eyelashes off. Hallelujah. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye. Hey there. Thank you so much for checking out my video. And I want you to check out my website at ToniHendersonMayers.com. You can find out about me in film and stage. You can also find out about the wise courtship philosophy and everything that I do, speaking across the country, and the book that I've written. And of course, you can go on to my online store where you can learn a lot of information about business, get coaching sessions, online courses, and so much more. Not only that, I have an Etsy store, which the website of all of these things are in my description. So make sure you go to my Etsy shop, which is called Faith, Hope, and Love Center. Make sure you go to that so you can get t-shirts, and I'm adding things every day, t-shirts, mugs, masks, all types of things, into the link that's going to take you to all of the books that we're using pretty much in our Read Through the Bible series. So here are the journals. This reflection journal is so that you can write and take notes. This one has a lot of study information and will help you keep organized as you're studying the Bible. This is the Bible that I read from, the NIV Study Bible. Of course, Wise Courtship is here, and some of the other books that I wrote, Yes, God is Real, and also I Rise, Stories of Triumph. It's just a great encouragement tool. So walk on over to the stores and give us some support. I think you're going to be blessed by the products. Take care.